All right, my teacher friends, lovers and haters of literature, and those looking for an easier, softer way to get your kids to write introductory paragraphs when they perform literary analysis. Kristian Kuhn here, affectionately known as the Bob Ross of composition. And I have a really cool lesson plan that I'd like to share with students and teachers today that I ran just recently in my classroom, and it worked really well. So all of us teachers and probably even students have sat through a stations activity before. And in my class, in particular my on-level junior class and my AP literature class, I really hammer home and solidify how to write the introductory paragraph with a heuristic, right? So I know many teachers use templates, and I'm not a fan of templates at all because I think it's too paint by number, it's too prescriptive, and we handhold a little bit too much. And at the AP level, I actually think that kids that use templates in many ways preclude themselves from getting the sophistication point. So I ran a station activity the other day in class in which I had 5 stations, and at each station I had a computer and it was playing one Oscar-nominated short film. And in YouTube, there are a gazillion of Oscar-nominated short films. And what students needed to do was analyze the film just like they would a short story or a literature excerpt or a poem, and then crank an introductory paragraph manipulating my heuristic known as the inverted thesis. And what I'm going to do in this video is run you through that exercise, but I'm going to focus just on one film, and it's entitled "An Ostrich Told Me the World is Fake, and I Think I Believe It." Before we dive in, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's called Kristian Kuhn, the Bob Ross of composition. And also note that this film, as I've already alluded to, is located on YouTube. It's very short. All of these Oscar-nominated shorts are less than 9 minutes long. So let's jump right in and immediately ask ourselves the question, so how do I write the introductory paragraph? My students, if they give me an iota of attention, know that for literary analysis, we always use the inverted heuristic, and for rhetorical analysis, we use the declarative heuristic, and then for things like synthesis, argument, persuasion, research, it's a 50-50 coin flip. In order for my students to write at the caliber that I'm going to show you in just a second, I've needed to Bob Ross my instruction from day one of the academic year. Here's what I mean by that. I get to the proverbial easel and canvas, and I paint with and for my students. My students see me right before them all the time, a la Bob Ross. And Bob Ross used something known as heuristics, and those that are familiar with his work, you know that every single natural landscape he ever tackled, he used something called the wet on wet technique. We're going to focus just on introductory paragraphs today, and I always use the inverted thesis or the declarative, but for literary analysis, I only ever use the inverted just to keep things simple. Now, if I'm going to make a prompt in the fashion or the vein of AP Literature FRQ1, FRQ2, I'm going to talk about, the authorial intent, the construction of meaning implicitly in that prompt. And that's the kicker. That's what I want to get to. It's kind of like a cheat, a hack in many ways, cheat code. Implicit in any prompt, and you can go back to the 1970s to prove me right on this. Implicit in the prompts of the FRQs are 2 essential questions. The first is, what is the authorial intent? The second is, how does the author construct meaning? What my students do is this. They take 3 sentences to answer the question, what is the authorial intent? And I know other teachers have different language for that. They might talk about the universal theme, the universal truth, the exigence, but you take 3 sentences to have that global thematic umbrella concept to the thesis. And then here's kicker number 2 of this presentation. Whenever a student answers the question, how does the author construct meaning? That constitutes and comprises the thesis statement. That's going to be the 4th sentence of the introduction. So introductions are always 4 sentences long. and you stick the thesis there. How does the author construct meaning? And when you answer that question, you got to get into the terms, the devices, techniques. So let's look at that inverted thesis graphically in terms of how the math works and the other bit parts. So as I've alluded to, you end with the thesis. Last sentence is going to be, how does the author construct meaning? You need some context and background up top. It's going to be 3 sentences, and it's heavy focus on universal truth, universal theme. I want to see my students use a fair amount of tier 2 level vocabulary while staying in their wheelhouse and sounding natural. I like to disabuse students of the notion that if they use $1 million words, they're somehow approximating good writing. That's a myth. You got to stay in your lane. You got to stay in your wheelhouse. And by tier 2, I simply mean your average run-of-the-mill SAT level caliber words. And then I know a lot of you follow me in the YouTube channel. I focus a lot on my Nuance Academy in there. And there's videos where you can backtrack and teach your students this. And even students, if you're watching this, you can do the exercise by yourself. So I use a text called Strunk and White's Write It Right. And they espouse the idea that there's 12 different sentence types. There's 12 different ways to cobble together a single sentence. But then you can go above and beyond that and say there's 20 different patterns to those types. My students know this stuff relatively well. I really skill and drill it from day one. So as I Bob Ross my exemplars here, you're going to see me be a syntactical ninja and make some really good choices so that I'm copping a good voice rhythm and flow. So let's recap this before we get into the exemplars. 3 + 1, 3 sentences authorial intent, 1 sentence construction of meaning. Here's exemplar number 1. You can see I've color coded it for you. The first 3 sentences are authorial intent. They are written in red. The construction of meaning sentence is written in blue. All my tier 2 level vocabulary is in green, and my terms, devices, techniques, as far as the literary aspects go, are in black. So let me read it, and then I'll unpack it for you. A direct correlation exists between mystery, wonderment, and man's desire to understand the world in which he lives. Like a math equation or scientific experiment unfolding, mystery yields curiosity, which naturally segues into man's insatiable desire to make sense of the confounding realities and apparent illusions of life. But no matter how much one seeks, questions, and explores the answers to life's mysteries, at the end of the day, they will come up empty in the answer department. Lachlan Pendragon's short film highlights the underlying paradoxes and ironies of human fate through the interplay of life as film metaphor. So let me unpack it for you. The first 3 sentences you can see are all just me expounding upon the universal truth, the universal theme, the exigence, the authorial intent. Why did Pendragon make this film? What was his social commentary? What was his impetus, his oomph for directing and writing this film? So that's expressed concisely in 3 sentences. The last sentence, if you look at the black, I have paradox, irony, and metaphor. Those are my terms, devices, techniques. And I feel as if those 3 things construct the meaning of the piece. Usually when I answer that question, how does the author construct meaning, I focus on 3 things, right? Without doing a literary terms dumping ground, it's usually 2 or 3 of the most salient terms, devices, techniques that construct the meaning. And also the last thing I want to point out, note all the green in there. I'm a pretty decent writer. I've been doing this a long time. Do I expect students to have vocab like that? AP Literature? Yes, eventually. That's why I run extensive word study academies. On-level juniors? No. But here's the thing. Some teachers say this to me. They're like, Kristian, you really ought to dumb it down because the kids aren't going to understand. And I reject that wholeheartedly. Bob Ross never dumbed it down. He always painted to his best abilities. And even the weakest, most elementary painter can closely approximate what Bob Ross is doing because he's using a heuristic. And same with me. I don't dumb it down. My most struggling emerging writer can mimic what I'm doing to some extent in there. So let's do that again because it can be confounding. I always model 3 times for my students. So here's exemplar number 2. As existential as it may sound, life has no meaning. While man has the bandwidth to question the principles and variables of existence, he can never deduce with any degree of exactitude why human existence even exists in the first place, whether it be God or some other cosmic force orchestrating the crazy drama of life. The reasons and origins of our existence are to remain a mystery. In Lachlan Pendragon's short film, he explores the underlying ironies and self-apparent paradoxes of the human condition through the life as film metaphor. Let me go in reverse this time just to unpack it. Last sentence is blue. It's the construction of meaning sentence. You can see yet again that I have irony, paradox, metaphor. I think those are the 3 principal terms, devices, techniques. In green, I have my tier 2. In red are my first 3 sentences, which are the authorial intent sentences. Every single time students approach introductory paragraphs when they are performing literary analysis, they can use this heuristic without fail. Students might be looking at this saying, I can't do that, Kristian. This is impossible. That's really hard, man. That's difficult to do. Yes, you can. Here's exemplar number 3. I color-coded it the exact same way. Let me run it from the top. Life's mystery can be condensed to the following adage: man is not God. Despite the human tendency to want to unravel all of the conundrums and baffling scenarios of existence, the fact of the matter is that God, or some other cosmic force, does not want for humans to know the secret ingredients to life. As such, man just more or less idly proceeds through his days by a certain blind volition without cause or reason. Lachlan Pendragon's short film underscores these apparent ironies and interconnected paradoxes through the life as film metaphor. So you can see in all 3 examples, my last sentence is pretty much the same, right? So we got to really teach kids how to read in order to do this well. And that's why I use a lot of short films, just to switch it up so I'm not redundant, not being mundane, and kids fall into the complacency of my instruction. So film is a great way to teach students how to read, and they're very short. So I teach on a blog, and I was able to do that station activity of 5 films in one 86-minute block. So quick. So it's good because we know students have 2 hours to write 3 essays. They got to move with a certain degree of pace. Otherwise, they're not going to, meet the demands of the assignment. All right. If you are writing with me, teachers, if you're running this in your class, pause here. Students, if you're just studying on your own, pause here as well and try your hand at an introduction for this short film. So note that I am a lead teacher for the National Writing Project, and I offer PD throughout the year with Perfection Learning. I often present for NCTE, the College Board, even applied practice. And to stay abreast of my comings and goings, I have a calendar on my website, teachinghowtowrite.com, www.teachinghowtowrite.com. There's a calendar of events there. Some of the PDs are free and some are for a nominal fee. So you can see what we're offering throughout the calendar year. If you would like to drop me an email and have any questions, you can contact me at teachingwritingcoach@gmail.com. And students know that I own my own tutoring company that I call Write at Ivy Write. I'm an Ivy League grad, went to Brown University, got a couple of graduate degrees there, worked admissions, and I'm really expert on the college application process. So if you want a helping hand at getting your personal statements done and your supplements, drop me an email and we can talk shop. I've also taught AP Lang and AP Lit for over 2 decades, so I can get you over that hurdle as well. All right. Happy teaching, happy writing. That's the end. And I'll keep more of these short films coming your way so that you can practice. Take care.